Matt, we are back, dude, and long overdue. My friend, how are you doing out in Houston?
Great. I'm burning up out here. It's already summer. Like it's like in the high 80s. I'm sweating my tail off out there doing inspections. Today I had a really interesting day. I was one of several guest speakers on a panel of all about healthy homes, which is right in line with what we're going to be, focusing the topic of today's podcast on. And so I'm really excited to just go straight from that into this. So it's been kind of an exciting day, but yeah, a lot going on, man. You can really tell the summer's right around the corner.
Dude, so definitely, man. And, there's been, if you guys have been watching all year, we've definitely placed an emphasis on healthy homes over the last several months. And today, we're talking about things that grow behind the walls.
That's
So, we're
right.
talking about mold, and nobody better to talk about that than our guest. But let's roll the intro, and then we're going to bring them on.
All right, let's do it. I first started communicating with Jordan back, I swear it was like 2018 or 2019, right? It's been some years ago.
It's been a
I'm not
while.
real sure. Jordan Mason is our guest today. He's out in the Tampa area of Florida. Am I
Yes,
correct
sir.
about that?
My old
We
stomping
we
grounds.
communicate a lot on social, or used to anyway, a lot on social media. Jordan was just, there's those people that when they put out content, you can just tell that they're genuine people, good people with on a good mission. And that is always the impression I got from Jordan's content that he put out. And I always respected him for that. And me and him have been kind of chatting back and forth about the industry for a long time. We had Ryan Wall on last season.
Sure did.
Jordan and Ryan were together. I remember when you guys made that merge. Actually, I remember you talking about Hello Home before you guys did that. Like I remember when you were kind of when you couldn't do a job, or maybe you guys did jobs together. I don't know. I remember some things
Yeah.
kind of before the transition. So it's pretty cool. So super excited to have you on the show, Jordan Mason. We're going to say at least today, because you're with Hello Home still, right?
Yes. Less in the field with Hello Homes,
Right.
more just kind of as an advisory role, helping the team out, helping to lead the team of inspectors when necessary. But I'll be honest, they make it super easy on me.
Yeah.
They're all super self-sufficient. So I'm there for a question, just as kind of the more seasoned guy in the room. But they do a great job over there.
Well,
Well,
speaking of
today we're,
season,
we're more talking about CXR Solutions, which is another company that is affiliated with Hello Home, or just owned by what's the
Yeah,
deal there?
it's really same ownership, but we have a great working relationship. The real estate space, it's a big community, really, and especially in Tampa, we've had a lot of growth, a lot of business, a lot of just craziness over the last 5 to 6 years, and we got a lot of really great contacts in there. And a lot of it started of like, hey, we have all these agents who are asking us about repair addendums all the time, but how do we actually help them?
Yeah.
And so, as an inspector, you can't really do much on the back end to help out. So it started with a big idea and a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but it's taken off over the last year and it's grown probably to places that we never even imagined.
dude, that's awesome. So you came from being a home inspector yourself and then moving over here, merging with Ryan. So
Yeah.
you've got a keen perspective on something that I want to tell the viewers about before we launch into the discussion. So, guys, do you remember your first year as a home inspector?
I do.
Oh, yeah.
What stood out to you the most? Like, take me back to like the biggest pain points that you had back then.
Jordan, you go ahead.
Yeah, for me, it was just being very excited to be in the market. I was in the mortgage space. So I was still kind of in that real estate world, but I was just getting stuck behind a desk and I was kind of not liking sitting there all day. I wanted to do something with my hands. So I honestly started as like hey, I could do a job or two a week just to get myself out and about. And it blew up. But the thing that I remember is I'm licensed. I'm super excited. I've crossed all my T's and dotted all my I's. And then realizing I don't know that I actually know enough, and having that kind of imposter syndrome and like, man, do I really know enough to do a good job for these clients?
Man, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like the first thing that came to mind when you asked this question, Brad, to me was uncertainty.
Mhm.
I was uncertain in myself. Now, in retrospect, I mean, I've said it before, I've said it on air. I wish I could get at least the first 2 years of inspections back and do those again. However,
Yeah.
I will say that I knew more than allowed myself to think I knew, like I was actually better than I thought I was. I was more competent than I actually knew. But I had this fear, like you said, imposter syndrome and just uncertainty looming.
Yeah, no, definitely. My biggest thing was I had the technical knowledge, but I didn't have the business knowledge, right? I didn't know how to, like you come out of all of your InterNACHI training or whatever your inspector school is, and everything, book knowledge wise about the house, right? You've seen some stuff and you know what it is in the book. You haven't necessarily seen everything that there is to see. You've got a lot more coming on that. But understanding the business fundamentals of your financials, of marketing, of sales, of how to network and actually connect with agents so you can build a book of business. It's tough and things have changed over the years, but if you noticed, we've kind of scaled back a little bit here on the Ride Along podcast over the last 2 months. And that's because we're actually ramping up production on something that's going to be coming out mid July. It's a masterclass. For 3 months, right? It's two per month from July through September, and this is going to be a crash course for first-year inspectors or newer inspectors if you're still interested in growing your business and learning the fundamentals to kind of help fill in some of those knowledge gaps. We're going to have some amazing guests that are going to be presenting. It's going to be webinar style, and we'll give you guys all the details on that soon. So
And that's
stay
right,
tuned on that.
because it's not just about like, okay, I had the uncertainty and you had like a little bit of business knowledge. But the fact of the matter is, you have to do both of those things.
You do.
There's actually all those things, you have to do them all at the same time. And we're usually not just like banging at one and then not at the other. Like there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of unsureness going into all of those things. So that all should be covered.
Yeah, you hear business owners talk about implementing systems and processes, and you go, "What in the heck does that even mean? What does that have to do with home inspections? I know how to go around a house." Well, you also need to know your way around an office,
Definitely.
even if it's in your own house. So you've got to have things in place to keep things rolling, and we'll help you get there. So that's going to be coming
Here's to
up.
that.
Stay tuned on that. Cheers to that for sure. Speaking of cheers, guys, we can't get too far into this without doing the drink of the day. Jordan, welcome to your inaugural drink of the day, sponsored by Inspection Fuel. It's going to be September 28th through the 30th in Louisville. And Matt, I hear the hosts are pretty awesome.
Yeah, I heard some pretty good things about those guys too. Feel like their name might be Brad and Matt, I think, maybe
I
something
think
like that.
so. Not they're rather good looking guys, eloquent.
Yeah,
That's what I hear.
I like to think so.
Yeah, so go check that out. But you can go register inspectionfuel.com. Jordan, what are you sipping on tonight for your drink of the day?
So tonight we got the Golden Road Mango Cart.
Dig it.
Good choices, man.
That's a good choice.
Dig
Especially in
it.
Florida. That's a good Florida beer.
Oh yeah, that's a beach beer.
It
It's a
is.
beach beer. I there was one year, every year I try to get a beer advent calendar for Christmas, and one year it was like, because most of the time it was I always find them at Costco, and most of the time they're like German,
Yeah.
which is fine. I love that stuff. But one year it was like craft beer or something, and they had a whole bunch of stuff like that, and they had some IPAs from all different places and everything. That particular one was in there. It was the first time I'd had it. That's killer. Good stuff.
Oh, it's definitely good. Matt, what are you
What are you
sipping on?
drinking? Oh, me? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, me, I'm sipping on some Cooper family. This is their barrel reserve bourbon whiskey. And so this is one of their nicer bottles. And I was feeling frisky today. So
Had to
cheers.
be bourbon.
It had to be bourbon.
I've still got a little
Honestly,
bit
a
of that.
cocktail
Super
sounded really
tone.
good. I don't think I have a beer. A cocktail sounded really good, but I was lazy. I just wanted to pour something in a cup and let's go.
Man, I've still got I think a little bit left of that Cooper family bottle that you gave me before. That stuff was solid, dude.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Good.
They have a few different bottles. This one in particular, I tend to like a lot,
Uh-huh.
but it's also like the one that's the most expensive. So go
Yeah,
figure.
of course.
But
Yeah.
but I mean, I haven't had a bad bottle.
Man, you are simply a man with a refined palate.
What
Okay.
can I say?
That's it. Well, guys, I am sipping on something new. So, usually, gosh, Jordan, you've got a Florida beer there. I'm a Florida boy. Y'all know that the Gulf has a place in my heart. But tonight, I am sipping on something pretty cool here. This is a newer product straight out of Nashville, Tennessee, called Rhino Dart. That is a tequila based beverage. It's not a hard seltzer.
Ooh.
8% alcohol by volume. Some friends of mine here created it. I'm trying to help them get it off the ground. They're not sponsoring the show. I just think that you guys, especially if you're home inspectors in Tennessee, should go check it out. And they're going to be coming to a state near you soon.
Well, what tell me about what's in it. I mean, I know it's got
Well,
tequila in it, but it's in a can, so it's gotta have more
it's
in it than
got
that.
agave spirits, citrus liqueur with wildflower honey.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I get it. Okay,
yeah. It's
cocktail like
pretty
any
good, man. It's pretty good. Rhino Dart, it sounds a little tranky, but,
It does, totally. That's what it
yeah,
reminded me
I'm
of.
like, if I drink this, am I just gonna die? Like, but I haven't yet. So, you
Well,
know,
certainly hope not.
all
And
right, let's roll into
on
it, guys.
on that topic, let's go into something that I don't know, is it dangerous? Is it not? Something that I've been dying to talk to you about, man, and really because I've known you've been doing this for a while, but you've done some videos on this particular topic I wanna touch on, and I know that you have some knowledge and not only, what it is, but the removal of it, and it's lumberyard mold. Right? I'm gonna go lumberyard mold. Right? I'm gonna
I
use the air
appreciate that.
quotes here because that's what we're calling it, right? But this stuff. It grows in a house before it's dried in, even if it doesn't have anything on it whenever they start framing the house. So we can call it whatever we want, but it is some type of microbial growth happening during the framing stage. And we need to figure out like, what is it? What is it? What's the toxicity level of it? What is your knowledge of of that stuff?
Do we
Yeah.
write it off?
So
Do we report it? Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's what I'll say is mold in general is a very hot topic right now.
Mhm.
It's huge on social media. People are really diving into it, which is a good thing. At the base of any real problem is knowledge. And the more people that know about it, the more people understand about it, it is a good thing. To me, when I use the term lumberyard mold or I hear it, one, it's either a builder trying to get out of something, which we'll probably talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
But to me, lumberyard mold is that's going to be showing up on the wood. That's coming from wherever, whether it's 2x4s or joists or trusses or whatever we're talking about. That's kind of where we put the sort of imaginary line in the build process. This is coming on the wood from wherever it's coming from versus, maybe some humidity style molds that are growing. I mean, Matt's the same way. It's a million degrees in these properties while they're being, I mean, sometimes it's 6 weeks, 8 weeks, months, who knows? One small wrinkle in the build process can really extend these products, and all of a sudden you have a house sitting there for 6 months with a couple of windows, and sure, it's got a roof, but the humidity alone can grow some things. So that's a big difference for us. Did this come with the wood? Is it more heavily rooted in there, or is this something that maybe grew in the last couple of weeks? It doesn't take long.
Does it
That's
matter?
yeah, I would
And
think it
I
does, right?
guess like I guess that's part of the question is like, what is your knowledge as to what it is? Do you like we're calling it lumberyard mold, but I mean
Yeah,
certainly there's microbial growth that I think maybe wouldn't be considered mold. There's certainly things that are a fungus or a mildew. Is that considered mold? I don't know.
yeah,
I haven't done any testing on it. I don't know. There's also mold that is very toxic and other molds that are not very toxic. And I
sure,
think the reason why mold is such a hot topic is because people are starting to become more aware of this. I mean, I
yeah,
literally spoke with somebody today that I spoke with several times. Her child was diagnosed with autism, and this went on for a couple of years before they finally realized it actually wasn't that. They saw a doctor. The doctor said, "Hey, well, let me ask you something. When did this change?" They said, "Well, this time." Well, what changed during that time? They found out they moved into a new house. They started doing some investigating. They found out their house was literally covered in mold that was causing
yeah,
these problems. And so they moved her out of that house, and within 3 months, everything was gone, and she's no longer considered autistic. As a matter of fact, there's nothing nothing at all. She's just completely like she was prior to this. And
yeah.
so, so what is this stuff? What do you know about it?
Yeah, so we like to take like a really nuanced approach to every property, and for me specifically, I I'm there for the property, but I'm also there for the family. And so understanding the entire background is really important to me because you can be in a house and you could be sneezing and coughing, and you could have real problems. I can be standing right next to you, and maybe it just doesn't bother me. So not only do we have to understand, hey, what's there, what genuses of mold are there, what are we really dealing with, but then also understanding the other side of the equation. Not to say that we would sort of not treat it if the person wasn't allergic, but we have to understand the whole thing. A good example, we just completed a product or a project last week, and it's new construction, very similar, not quite as extreme as the example you just gave, but they had to sell their house. They've moved out, and because they had seepage through their foundation and like 3,500 square feet of mold underneath the floor, and they have a 5-year-old daughter who was just incredibly sick, and her face is swelling up, and she's doing all this, and so they're, hey, we're going to build a new house. We're going to build a new house. This is the way forward. This is how we can control our daughter's health. And they come in, and there's mold all over the trusses, and there's always scrap pieces of wood here or there that get used up from the bottom of the pile that maybe shouldn't have. That's easy to deal with. But you're looking at these trusses, and lo and behold, the worst of it was in the room that this daughter was going to
Of
be in.
course.
Of course, right? So it was just, luckily they're educated, they understand because they found a good doctor. But the inspection side, the remediation side, I think is a little bit ahead of the doctor side right now. There's not a lot of doctors who specialize in this.
Right.
It's very hard to find them. So I think there's a lot of misdiagnosing going on. I mean, that's obviously not my realm, but just the stories that I hear, there's a lot of misdiagnosing happening when it could just be mold.
I mean, and there's a double danger in that, right? Where it's like if things can be misdiagnosed, on the other hand, they can also be misremedied at the same time.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah.
You hear people say, "Well, if it is mold, just put bleach on it," and I'm like, biggest misconception amongst
Huge
homeowners,
pet
how to
peeves.
treat, right?
Let's go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't do what people think it does most of the time. Basically what's going to happen, and obviously not every case, you got to put the disclaimer in there, but your chlorine in there is going to evaporate fairly quickly, and you're just going to be left with water. I mean, we literally put a kind of a silly video on our social media about a week ago where we I think we used the catchphrase, "You're bringing moisture to a moisture party." And so that's kind of how we describe it. It's like, and we've had builders say this to us. Hey, don't worry about it. And we know you found it in your pre-drywall. We'll spray it down with bleach, no big deal. And we're like, whoa, hold on a second. Please don't do that. So yeah, I mean, it's just you're left with too much moisture, and it's just not going to do what you need it to do.
Yeah.
Truly. Now, early on in my career, the first home inspection company that I worked for, we had a branch of the company that was also mold abatement. Sounds
Mhm.
similar to what you guys are doing. It's such an easy ancillary. Like if you're looking to spin off a side business that's doing something else that's adjacent to what you're already doing as an inspector, it's a great business to start. And because the biggest thing is that I learned, we had a saying in the company: mold is gold. Right. For a lot of home buyers that are looking to buy, if if you do see mold in the house, a lot of times it is fairly treatable if you know people that know how to treat it properly.
Yeah.
But understanding when to treat it and if it needs treatment is another big thing, right? I think
Yeah.
about houses in Florida that we see down there, a lot of like old wood bungalows, right?
Mhm.
You get down in the crawl spaces. You're lucky if they're even properly supported down there, but you can see old mold, right? Where it's
Mhm.
it's dry, it's crusty, and you're like, do we need to worry about this anymore? But my big question is, should people be worried about dormant mold becoming active again? Does all mold need
Yeah.
to be treated, or at what point?
Yeah, so again, everything is really case by case. For us, and I like what you were saying about kind of an ancillary service. That's how we started.
Mhm.
We were an inspection company, and a couple bad hurricanes roll through, and you're like, man, people are gonna need some help with this. We were already
Mhm.
offering air quality testing, but it was really we're gonna set up our air machine, we're gonna walk away, and we're just gonna give you the results. And that's as far as you can really go. In Florida, we do have an assessor license as well as a remediator license. Not every state's exactly the same. And we kind of said, we want to go a little further, so let's go and do the coursework, and let's sit for the assessor license. And the idea was we could just have a competitive advantage
Mhm.
while we're already doing our business, while we're already doing the inspections. We're really not doing a lot extra, we're doing the testing, so let's just get more educated and let's have a better approach. And it sort of snowballed from there. But you know, we find something we don't like. Hey, I think that's mold. Maybe it's old, maybe it's new. Who knows? Then we go into moisture. We're going to check for moisture. We're going to go through those steps. And we have all the tools at our disposal to go ahead and test it, whether that be a swab, an air test, tape lift, whatever the test method that makes the most sense. Um, the struggle is with certain testing methods. You will take a swab, for example. The swab tests from the lab they're binary. It's just yes or no, but it doesn't say, hey, is that dormant? Is that, live spores? That's the trouble. So there is a little bit of interpretation that you have to make. Why could it be active? Why could it be dormant? And kind of go down those roads. Well, hey, look, I know I've got enough humidity here. Like if I'm finding, let's say, for example, I'm finding penicillium or aspergillus. Okay, well, I don't need a lot of water for that. That'll grow with humidity alone. Well, I'm in a pretty hot crawl space. I could take my hygrometer down there. Okay, yep, we're in the realm. So even if I can't prove that it is active or dormant, like we have all of the preconditions to make it a problem, let's just err on the side of caution and let's take care of it. Um, on the flip side, if we're finding something that just needs a tremendous amount of water, it's like, hey, I don't have moisture anywhere. Something doesn't quite make sense here. We have a mold that we see quite a lot. It's called cotomium, and pretty nasty stuff. Like for example, the lab will fail you on a test for cotomium if it finds 5 spores. That's
Wow.
it. So they do not like it. But cotomium is really tricky because it's very heavily associated with moisture damaged wood and termite damaged wood. Well, one, you're going to find those two things in the same place. And from the research that we've done, as the wood continues to dry and as the wood is brittle now because of the termite damage, those spores are kind of always getting released until you physically remove the wood.
Hmm.
So there's a little bit of interpretation there sometimes. Hey, I'm finding cotomium, but I don't have any moisture, but I also don't have anything else that would be associated with it. Like if you start finding cotomium and stachybotrys together, you got a big problem.
So
Um,
cotomium specifically, this isn't simply a spray it and seal it and forget it type of a thing. You've got to take the lumber out.
Ideally, and that's a really good point. I think this is one of the biggest misconceptions in the whole mold world. Certainly from sort of people that are maybe on the periphery but aren't in the remediation space. The main goal should always be removal when possible. Always. Now, not always possible. I can't pull 2 feet of a load bearing wall out. So that's when we're going to jump to treatment. And for us, it's remove everything that you physically can first, treat everything that you can't remove.
So
And I think
where do you
that's a
draw
big
the
one.
line on that? I mean, because I went into a friend's house here in Tennessee, and again, I used to do mold abatement in Virginia, a very similar client or climate to
Yeah.
Tennessee. Um, and he was like, "Hey, could you check this out? We had some water issues. They did a French drain around the outside, interior perimeter drain because it's an older home.
Yep.
Very very typical, water remediation treatment system. Sump pump in the back corner, kind of a thing. And
Oh, yeah.
but I walked down, and true to form, they cut out drywall 4 feet up. Makes it easy to put new drywall back in. But they also cut the studs behind the drywall in the basement about 2 feet up. And I looked at it. I mean, they're dangling in the wall back behind it, and I'm like, was that necessary?
That's a
Because
choice. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a choice. I've never thought that that would be the best option,
I didn't either.
because there's so many ways that you can solve that problem, right?
Yeah,
Now, if it's, I mean,
I was
if the
building a new
water's
dadgum wall.
Yeah, if the
Yeah.
water's sitting down there for forever and ever and ever, it's like, okay, well, maybe we have integrity issues anyway, but that doesn't sound like that's what's going on there. I mean, again, if our goal is removal, I guess it follows that, but that seems a little extreme, especially when wood is so unbelievably treatable, and you can scrub it, you can sand it, you can blast it, you can treat it. I mean, there's so many things you could do. Or if you're that worried, you can encapsulate it.
So it
Yeah.
sounds like your removal, it is like the things that are gonna retain water the most. So the
100%.
drywall, the insulation,
Yeah.
tear all of that
Yeah.
out.
Oh, that stuff's got to
Yeah.
go. So,
So, you know,
I think if I'm picking up what you're laying down, when it comes to this lumberyard mold, here I go with the quotes again. Like, we don't really know what it is unless it's tested. It's not like this particular mold that we see is X mold.
yeah,
I
no,
mean,
it's
it'd be
it's
different types of mold.
yeah, it's unbelievably difficult or impossible for the average person to just look at something straight up and identify it. You really need a microscope.
Yeah.
But for us, what I like to do is I like to test when it's appropriate. You don't have to,
Yeah.
um, but I think it's helpful.
Sure. Well, you know what you're dealing with. I can see that. And I mean, but because like there are too many people that think, well, this is just not really a problem. And for a couple of reasons, I want to go down that for 1 second. So, I uh, there's a builder out in the Pacific Northwest. Okay. Much different climate than me and you are dealing with. Okay. They're
Sure.
wet, but they're wet with like water falling out of the sky, but they don't deal with humidity, right? They have
Right.
longer winters and where things dry out, a lot faster. And so like without having to deal with the humidity issues, their biggest challenge is just like, keeping things dry enough to get the house put together. Once it's put
Yeah.
together and sealed up, then they can dehumidify the house, dry out the wood, and then
Yeah.
they start putting up drywall once it's dry to 15%. And that's great. But he doesn't worry about the spots and stuff that he sees because, in his opinion, and a lot of the internet's opinion, whenever I make a video on this, is, you know, everyone see, and this is true, right? What do we need to grow mold? Water, air, a food source, right? And so the wood's the food source.
Yep.
Air is present, and so all we're missing is the water, right? And so if we dry in the house and put up the drywall and we don't have any issues anymore, then do we still have a mold problem? And that's the internet's argument. And
Yeah.
then the other flip side of that is like, well, I guess not the flip side, but there's another a side to that where someone says, if you do have a moisture problem at that point, then you've got a bigger problem. And I'm like, sure, but
Yeah.
we do have those things. Like, how do
Always.
we know
Yeah.
when something's going to leak? We do have a lot of humidity, and unfortunately, even I mean, the guy up in the Pacific Northwest, he's a high performance home builder. He's building an airtight assembly.
Yeah.
I have confidence that he's building a very good one, but most people aren't, and so we've got a lot of air leakage. That becomes a real problem for us here, where you're at and where I'm at, because that air coming into all of these
Yeah.
compromised areas is bringing a ton of moisture with it, and so
Absolutely.
we can't guarantee that this is going to stay dry. So, and I guess where I'm going with this is like, what does that being there dormant, and no water's present, does that mean we're not at a risk? And then like, okay, so if moisture showed up and that was not there, if the house was treated and that was not there, moisture shows up, we're probably going to end up with a mold problem, right? Does the fact that it's already there dormant make it any worse? Make it grow any faster? Are we at a bigger risk? Like, I think that's about seven or eight questions all in one.
Yeah. So it
Let her
absolutely
rip.
can. Dormant mold, dead mold, whatever we want to call it. It can absolutely regerminate with the addition of new moisture. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a leak. I think that's another big misconception. Hey, we have to have a sink leak to get mold. Well, not here. Some places, sure. But like you said, I mean, if we are finding lumberyard mold in quotes, we'll do that again. If we're finding that in an attic space on the trusses, well, that's going to be a hot attic. It's not going to be conditioned. It's just getting outside air at 4 million% humidity in the Florida summers, and it's just going to go right over top of the existing lumberyard mold. And again, we don't know what kind of mold it is, but in theory, it can absolutely sort of regerminate.
Well, then, like, if we start going down the rabbit hole of negative pressure issues, I mean, out here in our area with the high humidity we have, and with people that absolutely have no idea about appropriate attic ventilation or HVAC, it seems.
Yeah,
We deal with a lot of negative pressure issues. So it's like your
absolutely.
house, if you had proper pressure in your house, if everything was dialed in like it was supposed to be, you might have an airtight assembly enough to not have any issues.
Yeah,
But if you don't, or when something fails and stuff starts coming in, you know, does having that stuff in the lumber already put us at a greater risk?
Yeah, it certainly can. Air infiltration is like the bane of my existence at
I
this
know.
point. We've done more mold remediations for HVAC closets that are
Mm.
just not sealed. And it's the same thing. Hey, that hot attic air is coming in. It's coming in no matter what. So you better be sealed. You better be right and tight. It doesn't take much. It can happen in 2, 3 days.
See, this is where I think it's good to plug something that we're all kind of connected with. And again, we've intentionally tried to emphasize building science more over the course of this past year. And inspection fuel is going to be no different. A lot of the topics that we're going to be speaking on, and even our keynote speaker, the king of building science himself. Um, it's
You go ahead and say his name.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and say his name. It's Matt Reisinger, man. It's gonna be awesome. I'm so freaking stoked about this dude. I've been wanting to do this since we had him on the podcast
I
in
know,
his
man.
own podcast
It's really
studio.
cool to
Yeah.
see it all come together.
It is, yeah. But this is one of the reasons why it's important for inspectors to be in the know and studied up on this stuff, understanding ventilation and air pressure within the home, because like we all go to BS and beer in our respective communities, right? Matt, you go in Houston.
Yeah,
I know Ryan's involved with it in Tampa. Jordan, are you as well?
Yeah, we've got a great one here. Scott
Yep.
Randall runs it, and it's phenomenal.
And it's just started up here in Nashville as well. So it's if you guys aren't plugged in with a community, it's a great network of professionals where it's a mastermind group where everybody's kind of educating each other and helping everyone level themselves up, so that we all stay ahead of the learning curve when it comes to understanding the science of homes.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
BS
know if you got
beer.
anything you want to add on that, Matt.
If you
Yeah.
don't have if you don't have a BS beer chapter in your area, reach out to me because I can get you in touch with the right people to open up a chapter. But if you're looking to join one, there probably already is one. Reach out to your community and see if you can meet up with those people. It's a great place to meet like-minded folks and continue conversations just like the one we're having today. And so, and back to that, I want to know, like, so you do inspections and you do remediations. So what do you think as an inspector, like, what do you think we should be doing? You think it's an overreaction for us to put much of this in our report? Do you think the builders are just underestimating it?
Yeah.
What do you think is the proper road here? I mean, I know when I see it, I will admit that there was a long time where I would see it and not really say much about it because it is very common, right?
Sure.
But but my perspective on some of this, and as I learned, has changed considerably, and also because people's opinion has changed. People are much more aware now, and now they're like, "Hey, look, I had a mold event. My mom, my sister, my brother had a mold event, very sick. I don't want to start off on the wrong foot. So can we just not have any mold whenever we put the house together?" And so
Yeah.
I tend to align with that. I'm like, yeah, let's do something about it. And I get it because as inspectors, I feel like we need to. There's liability involved, but also like the education is there for us to realize like
Yeah.
people are getting sick from stuff, so we should be calling this out. The only reason why nothing's getting done about it is because we're not saying anything about it. And
Yeah.
so, but the reason why the builders aren't doing anything about it, and the reason why they're denying it, is because of expense in the
Yeah.
solution, whatever the solutions are. And so I guess that's why I want to try to figure out like what do you think in your opinion, what you think inspectors should be doing and what you think the builders should be doing in terms of reacting to this, because
Yeah.
they do get quite irritated when we call this out.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Unfortunately, we've had both ends of that spectrum. But no, I think the first thing for inspectors is just don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid to talk about it. And going along with that, just know your limits and don't be afraid of them. Like we all know, hey, this is where my expertise ends on this particular subject, and then just have someone on standby who is an expert in that field, just like we would do with an HVAC system, right? Hey, I know what I know, but like this is my HVAC contractor. He knows everything there is to know. I'm going to pass you along. I view it as exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Um, so I think don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid to talk about it. It's going to be worse if you don't mention it and then it comes up. It's certainly going to be worse. And again, it's a hot topic right now. So I
Yeah.
think people are already they're tuned into it. They want to know. I mean, we have other inspectors who we subcontract to just to do their mold testing while they're doing the inspection. And they're just like, look, this is my lane. I don't want to cross that lane. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not. Like, please just come in and take some tests and give us what we need. So I think for inspectors, just be comfortable, be confident. There's also a really good Internachi class.
Mm,
It's actually so good that the state of Florida will allow me to use it as continuing education for both my mold licenses. So it's a good class.
that's good to
It's got a
know.
lot of really good info in there. So that, I mean, again, most of us as inspectors are Internachi members. Use the resource. Um, so that's kind of from the inspection standpoint. Education, 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 and then just don't be afraid of it.
Sure.
From the builder standpoint, it really depends on the builder because
That was a
last
deep
week,
sigh right there, by the
yeah,
way.
it really was. It's tough. Last week we had a phenomenal builder, and I want to give them like their flowers when they're due. He wasn't afraid to talk about it. He came right. I mean, in this particular case, they had already paid a remediation company. They just hadn't gone far enough, and he didn't shy away from it. He's like, "Look, I understand this family situation. Like, I want them to be happy as well as their project manager." It's like, great. Thank you very much. Now, they weren't going to cover the cost of it, but the homeowners, it was important enough for them. But even if they're not covering the cost, they still have to let us on site.
Mhm.
And some builders are just not interested in doing that. So I think for builders, I get it, right? Everyone's got a bottom line to keep. Everyone has to make their shareholders happy. Um, where's the line in that? Where's the line of this is where this needs to stop, and we need to now be concerned about people's health and not just about the dollars and cents. And I get it. You have to think about both, but we got to think about health as well sometimes.
Well, I maintain that it all comes down to managing the client, and this kind of goes back to a topic that Matt and I have had. This honestly, this might be one of the things where it's easier to not have the client on site for the inspection, because when I've had the client on,
Sometimes.
yeah, when I've had the buyer there for the inspection, and I've seen mold on site, that's when you have to manage the panic, and I would always do it. It was a bit for sure, but I was like,
Yeah.
okay, let's all hold hands and we're gonna say the word real loud. And we're just gonna scream, all right, just get it out, right? And like mold, but anyway, at that point, when you don't want to make light of it, but when you set the expectation that this isn't something to be so scared of,
Yeah.
because it can be treated when you know what it is and how to treat it.
Yeah.
But we need to call somebody special for that, and it ain't me.
Yeah.
Like when you can manage it that way, I find that they're much more understanding. And it's not a deal killing thing at that point. So
No. The word or the phrase that I use all the time is everything's treatable.
yeah,
Now, time, energy, and money are always a
it
factor,
depends what you want to pay.
but
Yeah.
everything's treatable
Mhm,
from the job today where it's maybe 10 feet square to a property that we did that's 6,800 square feet and we treated most of it.
mhm,
It's all treatable. It's just how do you approach it? How do you get after it?
right.
And that's, hey, you guys don't have to worry about that. That's where we come in. You guys just listen, hear what we have to say, and then let us take over. We'll figure out the logistics, but it's all manageable.
Well, that's why investors, they're not scared. At least, most of the good ones that are looking for a great deal, they're not scared of properties with mold. They'll use it to
I
negotiate
agree.
down. They'll
Yeah.
knock the crap out of those walls, and it's a blank slate to remodel it
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah.
So,
And that's another key, I think, for inspectors. Um, you know, don't the presence of mold shouldn't be a determining factor on if you buy or not. Now, perhaps the cost to remediate is fine, totally happy with that. But I think some people, hey, there's mold here. That's it. Let's call it a day. We need to move on.
right.
Well,
And for some people, if
maybe.
they're super susceptible to
Yep.
health issues, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. But don't worry about it from you know, that has to be it for this house. Well, what if it's your dream home?
Mhm.
And what if for
Right.
like $4,000 you could still make it your dream home? And what if you got the seller to pay for it?
Yeah,
Then what's the
exactly.
problem?
Right.
You have the problem solved. You have, you didn't expend any money, so it can still be your dream home. You just need someone to know what they're doing to come in and take care of it for you.
And with the seller treating it, that's not like they're replacing a roof and they're gonna put on cheap materials afterwards, right? Because in that kind
Sure.
of an instance, I tell a buyer all the time, like, "Look, just see if you can get a credit, and then you
Yeah.
can pick the material afterwards."
Yeah.
But at
Yeah.
least with this, they have to do the full abatement, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've officially probably pissed off all of the building and construction people that were watching the show, let's talk about solutions.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one thing that really intrigued me, that and me and you had a conversation about it pretty recently. And I even I sent you the sneak peek of the most recent video I put out on this lumberyard mold stuff, which was Brad. I don't know if you saw this, but basically it was actually a combination of two houses, but it was like it was some pretty severe cases of lumberyard mold, and it was like, all I did was basically kept saying lumberyard mold over
Uh-huh.
and over and over again, but I recorded over myself a bunch with, like, different pitches, and so it sounded like a bunch of people saying lumberyard mold, lumberyard,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it was like, "It's not a problem, it's not a problem, it's fine, we're gonna treat it with bleach, it's fine," and, like, it was just all this, it was like builders just yapping
Yeah.
it over and over again, and it went on for, like, a minute and a half or something, so it's like it was the sheer fact that it went on so long was to prove a point, because it's like that's what happens. Like it's over and
It's
over
true.
again. We're hearing this. Like, so it was all on purpose, right? And the video like was loved and hated by many. But anyway, no, what I want to know, like I say, what are the solutions, right? Like
Yeah.
what so builders are at this point are probably angry, and they're like, you know, okay, so you're telling me there's all these problems, like, but this isn't a problem because I'm going to build a house that's not going to have moisture issues, so it's not a problem. But what can I do now that you've pissed everybody off and got everybody all scared? So
Yeah.
you made this video where you were just blasting this stuff right off, and I was like,
Yeah.
what is that? Because the first question that comes up every time I find this stuff, and every time it comes up in one of my pre-drywall inspection reports, the buyer's like, "What can we do? What can be done?"
Yeah.
And so, and until I saw you doing that, I honestly didn't really have many answers. And I think there's actually a few answers to that, which I think you'll probably be better at answering than me. So why don't you go take that away?
Yeah. So the cool thing that I've discovered about mold remediation is the framework never really changes. The framework's always the same. The methodology at particular steps is what kind of changes, which is kind of why it's fun. You can have a real nice rigid structure and there's just a couple pieces that you move around. So the containment never really changes. You have to contain whatever space you need to keep the mold in and keep the good stuff out. Every now and then you do a whole property and maybe you don't have to worry about containment so much, but that's pretty rare. The mechanical controls don't really change. You need your air scrubbers. You need, sometimes you need drying, sometimes you need dehumidification. It just depends, but your mechanical controls stay the same. Your spraying of your detergent doesn't really change. Your wiping doesn't change. Your HEPA vacuuming doesn't change. Really, what changes is you need some form of abrasive removal at some point of this structure, and so that's where the big differences happen. Hey, is this like pretty easy? Do we need just a wire brush on top of this stud? Cool. We'll use a wire brush. Or, hey, do we need to break out a hand sander on this one? Okay, cool. We'll break out the hand sander. Or, hey, we could hand sand this, but it's 6,000 square feet. So, unless we're going to be here for 3 weeks straight hand sanding, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay, well, now we'll break out the soda blaster.
So that is
So,
what's so
There
intriguing
you
to me.
go.
yeah,
Now
so
what
that's
are
what
you using
everyone's
for
making
that?
all the noise about.
Yeah.
Is that's not like just what is it, the RMR 141? Or
No, no, this is baking soda, man.
No, so we have 100-pound canister that we fill with baking soda, and it's just Arm& and Hammer baking soda. It's nothing special. And then it gets hooked up to one of the largest compressors that I've ever seen in my entire life. It's not that it's crazy PSI. You need about 20 CFM for it, so it has to turn over real fast.
okay.
And basically, you've got an extruder on the other end, and you open the valves, and it blasts this baking soda out at a crazy rate of knots, and it basically acts as your abrasive method. So it's doing a light sanding on the top of the wood in this particular case. And at the same, baking soda, not crazy, but it has a little bit of sanitizing quality to it. We're not going to rely on that, but this allows us to cover tremendous square footage at a much faster rate than if we were trying to hand sand. Some methods we don't need to sand. We can simply wipe it down, and that is enough abrasive method. So, after that, the process remains the same. We HEPA vacuum, we wipe, we treat, we HEPA vacuum again. I mean, our life revolves with a backpack vacuum on most of the time, and that's kind of the unattractive part of remediation, like the kind of nuts and bolts of it that are really important. It's mostly vacuuming and wiping down.
Well,
So
I mean, that's like, we can make home inspection look sexy, but man, I mean, it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
you look like
It's actually
Ghostbusters in a
not.
crawl space. Yeah.
But I mean, like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go straight for it. That sounds expensive.
It can be, but again, it depends on how you price, I think. For us, our pricing method is based off square footage. So it doesn't have to be, again, we're probably not going to break out the soda blaster unless it's pretty significant and it's over a large square footage. If it's a room, it probably doesn't make sense. And it would be too expensive at that point. It just wouldn't make sense. Like we could just do this for half the price with a little bit of elbow grease, and so it just wouldn't make sense. So I think the problem would have to be significant enough where it would be a certain price point no matter what, to get that soda blaster out. But it's fun when we get to get it out.
Yeah, it sure
No
is makes a
doubt.
cool video.
Now,
So
when
after
do
you
you
blast it, you vacuum it, do you treat it with something or spray it with something? What
We do, yeah. So we treat with, I mean, a really basic house cleaning product first, which is Simple Green.
okay.
Pretty much available everywhere. It's the
Why is that
cheapest
not
product.
introducing more moisture?
So it is, but it's temporary.
Okay.
So it's a pretty light spray, and really we're using it as a surfactant to help lift grime and dirt and debris off of. Usually it's a wooden surface, right? We wouldn't need to bother if it was granite or something. We can just simply wipe that down. So it does introduce temporary moisture, but it gets dried out pretty quickly. I mean, most of the instructions on the bottles that we use for the chemicals, it'll say, hey, it's going to be wet for 10 minutes. That's about it. So yeah, with Simple Green, we spray that down to help lift everything off the wood. Then we would go into using our abrasive method, whether it be a sander, the soda blaster or what have you, and then we start the HEPA vacuuming after that. Now, I will say the soda blasting, it is a lot more cleanup because
Yeah.
there's a lot of baking soda that comes out of there. I mean, our last project, I think we used about 110 pounds
Oh my
on that
Jesus.
gosh.
product. So,
So much, dude.
How do you
you're
even buy it?
yeah.
Do you feel like clear out the shelf at Publix or what?
Costco, man.
No,
Yeah.
somewhat ironically, Harbor Freight.
No doubt.
Oh, wow.
They have 50-pound bags at Harbor Freight, and they're it's like $1 a pound. It's great.
Wow.
That's not bad at all, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not bad. Well, that's interesting. So is there anything after that? Like, is there after you've done that, is there, because I feel like I've heard of
Yeah.
peroxide or something like what?
Yeah. So we try as hard as we can to remain as basic and as sort of health conscious as possible. Like there's a lot of guys that put some really nasty stuff in foggers, and they just spray everything, and it's really abrasive. We like to use the simple stuff. So we use Simple Green, which is super easy. We then do our abrasive, our HEPA vacuuming. We do use one product, which is it's called Aftershock. It's a hospital grade disinfectant. So we will treat the wood with that 2 to 3 times, depending on the situation. And we like to use the hydrogen peroxide in the fogging machine. So we
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
aerosol. And
Okay.
why I particularly like that one, it's a great sanitizing agent.
It gets
Um,
everywhere.
the
It
fogging
does
makes
get
it
everywhere.
pretty
Yeah.
heavy. And so it can weigh some things down, get them down to the floor. We can then vacuum things up easier than, we can't walk around with the vacuum trying to get everything out of the air. But what I really like about it is after 20 to 30 minutes, all the molecules just separate, and there's nothing left. So there's no residue left over. So we do the fogging as like the last stage, and we feel totally comfortable doing that in someone's living room, even if it's just, hey, we're going to fog our way out of our remediation space. I feel totally comfortable doing that. We tell people like, hey, take a walk for 20 minutes because it can irritate your eyes or what have you while it's still heavy. But It's a great product for this application because it just evaporates and you're left with nothing. So you don't
Yeah.
have cleanup afterwards, which is great.
No, that's awesome. Now, dude, we talked about species of mold earlier, and you've talked about how different degrees of mold abatement needs are going to determine what you're using.
Yeah.
But when it comes to chemical, do you vary your chemical uses based on the species, like whatever comes back in the test?
No, we don't.
Okay.
What comes back in the test, we try to understand mycology enough to, because let's say we walk into a room, we'll walk in totally blind, which we would never usually do because a lot of companies will take an air test with no context whatsoever, and it's like, okay, you got mold, but then what? Where is it? Why is it there? Why could it be there? Where's it located? Like, there's just not enough context. So that's why if we're gonna go in and do an inspection for mold, we're going to do a full property assessment with testing.
Mhm.
They have to be in conjunction with each other. Otherwise, you could just have false negatives. Little side story, but I went into a property after the hurricanes in 2024 when everybody's houses flooded.
That was a
And
mess, dude.
oh, it was insane. I was there probably 7 weeks after the flood, and I put an air quality test right in the middle of this guy's living room. Came back totally clear. But I had water, it hadn't been touched, it hadn't been flood cut, nothing. It was just things were still being held behind the drywall, and it wasn't just readily accessible in the air. So without the property context, we could have walked right out and said, "Nope, you got no mold, no problem." So you
Wow.
have to have the context,
Yeah,
otherwise it's
yeah.
just silly. So then once we get those tests, we try really hard to understand the mycology behind these different things. Hey, well, this particular genus of mold, where does it like to live? What temperatures does it like? How much moisture does it need to grow? Because really, what we need to do is solve the root cause of the problem. If it's a humidity problem, okay, well, let's start looking for air leakage. Let's go to the air handler system. Is it functioning properly? This is something not a lot of people know. A lot of people will leave the fan running on their AC unit all day long. That will increase your humidity like crazy, and you will have a mold problem. It will get over 60% real fast.
That is
That
region specific, but if you are in
Sure.
if you're in zone 2A, and that is a hot and humid climate, there are
Oh yeah,
three spots in the US that are more hot and humid than the areas that me and Jordan are in, and it's the most southern tip of Florida, the most southern tip of Texas, and Hawaii.
yeah.
Okay. So we are hot and humid. And
Oh
so
yeah,
is all of 2A and just above it. If you're in those areas, if you're in anything close to the
Gulf
south,
areas, man.
do
Yeah.
not put your
yeah.
fan
Please don't.
on. Don't do that.
So
It
is
Please
has
it better
don't.
to just leave it on auto or to manually
leave it
control
on
it?
auto.
Leave
Yeah,
it on auto, yeah, okay.
auto's great. Unfortunately, one of our first remediation jobs was just that, and it wasn't actually their fault. They didn't. They didn't have an incorrect setting. A part of their blower motor had broken. And so they did everything right, but this little tiny switch broke, and all of a sudden they've got 68% humidity in one part of their house, and it caused problems. All you need then is a little bit of air that's directed the wrong way. In this case, the louvers for their AC registers were pointed at the ceiling instead of pointing down. And that small temperature change created dew point, and all of a sudden they had mold just because of the excess humidity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned the hurricanes, man, and I did my fair share of damage assessments on houses. I mean, I took a report template. I was doing these for free for people. I'm not patting myself on the back. There were several inspectors that were doing this down there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just a normal inspection report. It was literally like a damage assessment, storm damage
Yeah.
assessment. But man, like last time I was down driving up 275 in St. Pete, you could still see the piles of debris that are stored from that storm. Like,
Yeah.
it's
We were
nuts,
out
man.
on the barrier islands, and even now it's just not the same.
No.
You drive down there, and a lot of the businesses are, a lot of the big ones are open, a lot of the big hotels are open, but some of these smaller places, they just couldn't. The storms are really why we got into remediation in the first place, because
Well,
we were
that's
doing
what
the
I wanted
same
to talk
thing.
about. Yeah. Like, so we're in an El Nino year this year, which historically means lower hurricane probability for Florida.
Yeah.
So inspectors, it's good to always be thinking ahead about what's your next thing, right?
Yeah.
What's your next pivot plan? What are you going to do to reinvest money from your company? But say you're killing it with inspections this year. You finally got your book of business. It's rolling. You're making the best money you've ever made. What do you do with it? You don't just enjoy it. You don't go to Disney World. Okay. If you want to get ahead of the game, right? El Nino always swings to La Nina the next year. And we know if it's like last year, we lucked out in Florida. We didn't
Oh yeah.
have any crazy storms hitting. Um, we might, maybe, God willing, get that again this year.
It'd be
But
great.
that means this is the best year for you to go ahead and get your certification if you're in Florida,
Yeah.
so that you can be doing the same thing that you and Ryan and everybody are doing with Hello Home and CXR.
Yeah.
So, I mean, think ahead because it's happened before. It's freaking Florida, man. It's going to happen again, and it's not just
Yep.
Florida. I mean, it happens in Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas. If you're
Yep.
around the Gulf, think ahead. So,
It'll get you eventually. We've anybody who's lived in any of the Gulf states for long enough, it happens. I've been in Florida since I was 5. I've been through my fair share. We went through '05. I know you're from, kind of West Coast Florida. You probably remember '05. It was like 3 in 2 weeks.
mhm.
It happens.
Yeah.
So if you're here long enough, one will come your way.
Well, it's not a matter of being opportunistic either. It's about, again, the whole point of providing a service is to benefit the person that we're providing the service to.
Yeah.
In this case, home buyers. That's why we got into it. And it's the same attitude with whatever ancillary service you get into after that.
Yeah.
I was here a total of 1 week. I traded hurricanes for tornadoes moving to Nashville. And this Venezuelan guy was buying a credenza off of me. And he was like, dude, you need to get your tornado GC license. I was like, seriously, that's a thing here? He's like, oh yeah. And he's like, look, you go in when there's a tornado damage that's occurred on a property. Um, you underquote the big guys that are going to come through and overquote, and you have Pablo and Jose come out and do the work. And I'm like, I don't really know Pablo and Jose. And he goes, I do.
Yeah.
It's just the work is always going to be there. Know your area, and
Yeah.
it's find ways that you can be tacking on to your existing skill set.
Yeah.
So
So I think there's a couple of things that I want to like just mention before we wrap things up, and one of them is, a phrase that Matt Reisinger likes to use a lot is, "If it can't dry, it will die." I can't remember whose quote that is. It's not his, but he uses that one a lot. The drying ability of a structure has to be greater than the wetting. And as long as something can dry, we won't have a problem. And there's a lot of these builders, like the one I was speaking about earlier in the Pacific Northwest, like probably several of the ones that because I know that you deal with some high end builders down there, and we definitely do here. There's several of them that I have a lot of confidence can build an airtight and an assembly that is watertight. Everything always has some amount of risk, but I mean, I do have confidence in some, but what I don't have confidence in really is the uh, production builders and the people that I've seen that and the way they're putting these houses together that I inspect the most of. I don't really have confidence that they are working hard to build that airtight and that watertight assembly. I've seen it. I've seen how poor of a job they're doing installing flashing or not installing flashing. I've seen how these things are not sealed. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. So I don't have that confidence. And so if you're the caliber of builder that is going to dot every I and cross every T, you probably are at less risk with this stuff. But most of the builders out there, most homes are not being built to that specification. And the other thing that I want to say in regards to that, and even with the builders that are doing things right, is that whether or not this stuff is a problem, there is only one time to take care of it. We can argue about this right now and say, I think it's a problem. You don't think it's a problem. Should we do something? Should we not? We can do that. But if you put up those walls and it does become a problem, it is going to be a much, much bigger problem than it is right now. And
Oh
there
yeah.
is only one time to do this right. Look, you mentioned it, Brad, you've mentioned it. It's all remediate. You can remediate all of it, right? It's all repairable. And I say it all the time. There's very few things that are wrong with a house that can't be repaired. Very few. And
Yes.
even this can. If you get stuff growing in your walls and it happened because if we could ever prove it that it was because of lumberyard mold or whatever, You could pull all the walls down and you could then treat it and everything, but you don't wanna do that, okay?
It's such an
That
expense,
that
man. It's
yeah, that
unnecessary.
is
Yeah.
going to easily double, triple,
Yeah.
quadruple the expense. There is one time to do this. You get one shot at making sure that you don't have mold when the walls go up, and so I just think that we need to start maybe considering some of that.
No, that's
Yeah.
huge, man. That's huge. Jordan, what's one thing that you would give to new home buyers as advice if they're dealing with mold in their property?
Yeah, again, I think going back to it's solvable. It is not going to be the end of the world. It's going to be a blip on your radar for your whole life and your 30 years that you're going to spend in that property. It's going to be painful today. It's going to be stressful, but I think the right remediator and the right remediation team can really help to remove that stress. So do your research, find the right person for you who's going to care about you, not just like, well, yeah, we remediate it, see you later. Find the one that's going to care about you, that's going to hear you and understand your problems and your concerns. But, 10 years from now, you'll forget this ever happened. It's all solvable.
Yeah, no, I hear that, man. Well, this is a good opportunity for you to plug your company with everybody that's down in the Bay Area of Florida. So, where can they
Yeah.
find you online?
Yeah. CXRsolutions.com. We have, a great portal on there to ask questions, ask for service. And then on kind of the fun side of things, CXR_solutions on Instagram, where you can kind of see the fun, but also the silly videos. We try to make it as educational as possible, but we try to make it a little entertaining as well. But there you can kind of see it in action. You can see the process. Hey, this is what the soda blasting is. This is why we're doing it. And then you can physically watch videos of us removing mold from someone's house. I think that speaks a lot of volumes. Yeah. And if we can help anybody, we'd love to. That's why we got into the business. We want to help.
No, I love it, dude. And I feel like you can be a lot of help to a lot of home inspectors as well. So, as you and Ryan are friends of the show, we'll hook you guys up with a free, not a free whole trip. I can't give you that, but I can at least give you a free registration to Inspection Fuel if you want to come on out for that.
Beautiful.
In Louisville, Kentucky, September 28th to the 30th. Guys, sign up for that. Matt, any last words, man?
No, man. All I can really say is, man, it's really great to talk to you. Being friends for so long, we certainly don't get to do this very much, and so it's been really great having you on the show today and getting your perspective on the stuff. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys. It's been a real pleasure. I appreciate it.
Definitely, dude. Appreciate you being on here and taking the time tonight. And thank you guys, everybody, for watching. We hope to see you all in Inspection Fuel. Be sure to go register. We got the link down in the show notes or in the bio, wherever you're watching or listening. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you here next time. Right on.
The ride along.
You got it.